So this evening we have a guest. Some of you may know him being in people's Twitch chats, people's Twitters, always, tweeting about whatever favourite female actor they love. You've seen this person. Yes, so we're going to get McDuggan on in a second, and we're going to talk about some time loop films. So yeah, we're just gonna sort of delve into that as a sort of general topic. I know we've sort of delved more into specific films, directors, actors. So this one's gonna be a little bit more of a sort of look at the whole sort of subcategory of film. Yeah, you're a good husband. That's good to hear. You're looking forward to this. Well, I'm glad. I'm glad you're excited. So if McDuggan's ready, he gives me a thumbs up. He gives me a thumbs up. He does. Perfect. So what I will do is just get the screen ready in that one, and I will unmute you now. Perfect. There we go. Right. You're live, McDuggan. As he takes a drink.
Hello. Sorry, the coaster was stuck to the bottom of my bottle and it fell on the desk.
Excellent.
Smooth.
Yes, smooth.
I am a fan of female actors. This is a well-known fact about me. Hello,
I
husband.
mean, you are in. I did give you the title of Emily Blunt #1 stan, so I think that is your brand, pretty much.
That is very much my brand.
And I can see you're wearing the Laura Dern t-shirt as well. Perfect.
Never been in a time loop film, unfortunately, as far as I'm aware. But
I can't bring her up this evening.
Still time. Thank you. Should get in there.
Excellent. So if you want to just give people a bit of an introduction, McDuggan, like in terms of, because I know you're not really a streamer, but just sort of your film background, sort of what are you interested in, like genres, any sort of actresses, like directors, what do you sort of lean towards, really?
I've been watching films for a very long time, longer than I'd like to admit, probably. And I'm a big fan of, kind of sci-fi, fantasy stuff. Always have been since I was young. And so a large part of that quite often involves things like time travel and time loops and, manipulation of reality, that kind of thing. That's a big box ticker for me. So I've always been big into time loop films. But yeah, I've been watching films for ages. Director-wise, I quite like James Cameron films. I'm weirdly looking forward to Avatar, not because Avatar is all right. People say it's much worse than it is, but historically, James Cameron films are always banging. So it's reasonable to assume that he will still make a good Avatar film, and he's good at creating. It's a good world build. It's a good world building in Avatar.
Yes.
That's my kind of hope for it, that it will make a nice couple of films. Does it need 3 of them? Probably not, but outside of that, yes, obviously things like Emily Blunt I'm a big fan of your man Villeneuve. He's again, he hasn't made a bad film, don't think.
Not that I've seen anyway.
Subjective. I understand why people don't like them. I understand why people are not a big fan of Blade Runner or even Dune, but for me, he is another one who's a banker in terms of, if he's doing something, you would give it a watch, wouldn't you? Because you're pretty sure it's going to be, absolute quality.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think over time I've gone through lots of different genres of stuff, but the thing I've always been a big fan of is sci-fi, fantasy type stuff. That's my go-to sort of genre of film.
Perfect. I mean, when we were sort of like talking about what can we talk about for this, what sort of area do you want to focus on? And I think we've both sort of, we knew that we sort of both liked sort of sci-fi and time loops especially. So yeah. I think that was like the perfect sort of middle ground, I guess, for us to sort of talk about really as a subject. But before we get started, I just want to give us like people a bit of context about time loop films. And like, I didn't know a lot about this, and you might know a bit about this, McDuggan. But for me, like, I didn't really know sort of where it came from. I was a bit curious to see where they sort of came from, really. So I looked on the old Google, and then obviously Wikipedia was the top one, the reliable source of Wikipedia. So obviously, if those people who don't know what time loop film is when sort of a plot device in fiction, characters that re-experience in a span of time, which is repeated. And that could be in different, obviously in cinematic world, that's different settings, sci-fi, Western, whatever it may be. And in terms of like the first time loop film, I think it was more used in sort of narratives, like stories. So they got the short story called Doubled and Redoubled by Malcolm Jameson in 1941.
Ooh.
So going back, I thought time loop films were about 20 years old, not that far back.
Man,
yeah.
Like, there's a war on. Your man's just thinking, how can I relive the same day, mate?
Yeah, I mean,
It's not what you want.
people say write about what you know. I mean,
It's true. Yeah, maybe he felt like he was living the same day. It was a very early metaphorical
yeah,
exploration of time loop.
it's very interesting when you hear the year. And that story itself tells of a person accidentally cursed to repeat a perfect day, including a lucky bet, a promotion, a heroically foiled bank robbery, and a successful wedding proposal.
Very nice.
So not war-centred, considering, the time at which...
an antithesis to the war.
Yeah, and then sort of in terms of films, it's actually sort of Japanese sort of pop culture, based on an anime. Japanese fiction dates back to, sorry if I really butcher these names, but it says Yasutaka Tsushi's science fiction novel, The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, 1965. One of the earliest works to feature a time loop about a high school girl repeatedly relives the same day. Is adapted into a 1972 live-action Japanese television series, 1983 action film, and a 2006 anime film. So, yeah, so sort of within the sort of, I guess, sort of visual cinematic world or TV world, 1972, I guess, is sort of when we've started to see time loops sort of happen. So, yeah, I just thought it was a bit of an interesting sort of background and where they've come from. Because a lot of the sort of films and TV episodes that I watched, like I said, I don't think they're, I think Groundhog Day is probably the oldest one on my list. They're all quite recent.
Yeah, that's the go-to. That's what I was, as a genre, you quite often hear it called Groundhog Day films, which I was a little bit lazy potentially because it's not the first thing. It's obviously the first mass. It had Bill Murray in it as well. But it's not the best example of it by far, and it does the least probably interesting things with the concept. I would suggest from outside of being a Bill Murray vehicle, it's a very good Bill Murray vehicle, but it doesn't really do anything very exciting. Whereas I imagine The Girl Leapt Through Time was probably quite interesting. It had a lot more mad sort of sci-fi concepts.
Yeah, I imagine so. With my very small knowledge of sort of anime or sort of Japanese world, I imagine it could just be a lot more sort of a bit more experimental, whereas like you said, Groundhog Day is very much, because I only watched it for the first time watching it for this, so I watched it for the first time a few days ago, and I'm not a massive Bill Murray fan, I'll say that straight off the bat, and like you said, I do think this is like, oh, let's see how many jokes Bill Murray can do, or let him just do like improv or something like that at certain moments. But
it is a classic Bill Murray film. The same, like, and all of those Scrooged and Ghostbusters are the same. There's not a huge amount of, the dialogue is very ad hoc, and it works if you like Bill Murray. If you're not that bothered about Murray, it's probably all right. It depends how much you like Andy McDowell, I'd imagine.
Yeah. I thought it was good. I thought the film was okay. I thought the last third was good when the sort of learning about change and stuff out of. But otherwise, he's just trying to get a girl. I'm like, oh, okay.
I did wonder because I've not seen it for ages, and I was going to say, like, is it a bit sweaty now when you watch it back? It's a bit creepy and a bit like. It's a bit like sort of Passengers, but with a time loop element that essentially someone's just practicing trying to have sex with somebody, aren't they?
Pretty much, yeah. Like he's like he remembers like these little things. Like every time, he's like he makes a mental note. So he's like, okay, she doesn't like this, and then she's like, what? And there's like it progresses, and they get to like his house, and you're like, okay, you've only got one intention here. So in some ways, it has dated a little bit, but I don't know. It's okay.
It's got
but like you said,
in it, and it sets the format, doesn't it? That's the
like you said, it's the terminology. So I was just sort of going to bring it back a little bit, and I was just going to sort of ask you sort of why do you think you love time loop films? Why, like, and TV episodes, wanted to touch on those a little bit, but why do you think that's a sort of subcategory of like sci-fi or whatever it may be that you keep going back to?
I think, like I said, I quite like time travel anyway. When I was young, I like Back to the Future, and like in the 90s, we were probably, Quantum Leap must have been in the 90s as well. That kind of anything that's got time travel is already like an extra box tick for me. It adds a extra bit of quality. You could give me a show that is average, but if it's got some time travel in it, probably an extra little extra little bunts for me to have a
Yeah.
little watch of. I quite like the straight up time travel stuff. I watched Timeless recently on Netflix, very enjoyable series. I like it when people go back, do a thing, and then come back to the future, and there's some repercussions. But time loop is that sort of little subgenre where there's a lot more going on because Groundhog Day not included. Generally, there's some kind of video game type aspect to it in the sense that you're working towards a thing. There's a thing that
Yes.
needs to happen that you are being prevented from, and you need to learn to get through it. And I quite like it from a how it's produced and from a writing point of view. Whenever you watch a time loop episode, I quite enjoy the bit at the start where you see it forming and you're looking for the cues. There's always loads of visual or audio cues that you know are going to be the repetition beats. So you can
Yes.
see them
Yeah. Yeah.
coming.
Yeah.
It's quite enjoyable to sort of piece that together and think, oh, in a minute, this is going to be the thing. I'm getting primed for it. I think, and quite often, time travel in general, but some of the loop films, they do kind of get into that ethical sort of the conundrum of if you know what's coming, should you or could you affect it? And actually, are you affecting it, or are you in fact causing it in a kind of some of that causal loop kind of affair? It's just a quite. I just really like it. It ticks a lot more boxes. I can't explain it more than that. And it is. And I watched Groundhog Day years ago when it first came out, and I was a big fan of it. But yeah, I think it's. And the weird thing is, like you said, there's a massive gap. So Groundhog Day is what 95, 93,
I
quite a while ago.
think so.
Then there's
Maybe
loads of TV
before that.
episodes, so you get a lot of like Buffy and Angel and X Files did loads, and there's a huge gap really. And then it's not till Source Code comes along that kind of really started the kind of actual films that take the concept and do more with it. And then after that, there was a mad sort of
Yeah.
explosion of them. But that's probably where a lot of it came from. I think that's the kind of catalyst for, as a concept, this actually is something that does work and can be spun out. Because essentially, it's very root. It's basically a Twilight Zone episode. That's what the format is.
Yeah.
It's an episode of like a Outer Limits Twilight Zone kind of 45-minute job made into a 90-minute film in a lot of cases. But I quite like Twilight Zone, so that works for me as well. Then.
No, I think that's all very fair. Like, I guess when you were saying that, I will probably say we will probably mention some spoilers in this. I mean,
Yeah,
it's gonna happen,
weird.
you know.
And it's annoying. It's annoying. One of my favourite films. It's a horror film. I won't say it because it's a massive spoiler. It stars an actress that I really like, unsurprisingly. Is a time loop film. You can't talk about it because the fact it's a time loop is a massive spoiler for the film, and it completely ruins the whole concept.
Yeah,
So
I know which one you're on about. Is it the one with right below?
oh no, that's sort of. It's
not that one.
Australian, but that one as well. Yeah, they're both.
Oh, okay, I don't know then.
But yeah, it's annoying. There's a small selection of those films that you just can't talk about because the very nature of them in a time loop film spoils it.
Yeah, yeah. No, because when you like what you were saying about sort of why you enjoyed this, I'm gonna sort of don't want to touch too spoiler, but Arrival for me was one of those, whether you call it a time loop film. I guess sort of it's like you said, that question, like if you could change those things, would you?
Yeah.
And I think that's what, like, when it's a good time loop film, leaves you like with those questions, like, should I change that? I've noticed these things. Should I change? Will that affect my own storyline and stuff? So I think, yeah, when it asks those bigger questions, and it's very, I find time loop films and TV episodes very they come to characters in that narrative at very sort of obviously really significant time where they need to change as people, or they need to act in to get to a certain point. I think, and I guess it's very self-reflective, because I guess we've all got certain things we want to change, or different routes, like, do I want to go down a different career, should I go on this date, or whatever, things that can change certain career sort of lines.
There's a massive It's a Wonderful Life element, isn't there, of time loop films? Essentially that is not a time loop
that's
film,
true.
but it's the Scrooged story,
Yes.
isn't it? It's essentially, but in a much more distilled kind of, this is just improving you as a person, but in one day, rather than looking at your life and pointing out all the shitty things that you did. But yeah, I think that sort of brings us on to, like, what are the rules of them? Generally, you find it is a day, isn't it, that normally is repeating for at least one person in the thing. It's identical every time, apart from things they affect, isn't it? And then normally the Groundhog Day style ones, kind of something very vague needs to happen. Normally, like you said, it's a self-reflective thing that isn't really identified, and they move on. Or there's the other ones that are a bit more controlled, like Source Code, where it's being manipulated by someone, and there's an end goal that you need to move towards and learn, don't you, and try and get out of, and then outside of that, there's the other sort of the subgenre. It's an adjacent genre of like causal loop type bootstrap things where everything's happening at the same time. So like Prisoner of Azkaban, the time travel in that is
Yes.
it's not a loop, but it is in the sense that it's all happening simultaneously and it all affects. There's no end to it. It has no output. It's just people affecting people constantly. Harry gets hit in the back of the head with the thing. He couldn't do that unless he was there to do it, and it never ends. And
Very much Back to the Future as well, is what I'm thinking of.
All that stuff. Like, did you watch Dark? Have you seen Dark?
No, I haven't. No.
That is the best piece of time travel media I've probably seen ever in terms of how well it works, in the sense of it's so robust start to finish. There's not a bit that doesn't. There's always a few little strands that are a bit like that doesn't really make sense. But Dark is so tight for not a loop, but it is really clever causal time travel. Excellent.
I've heard good things about it. It's just I just keep pushing it to the back of the watch list. Apparently, I do have a question from husband. He says, "Did you like Sliders?" Now I don't know what Sliders is, but
I did like Sliders. I don't want to go on a massive tangent, but yes, Sliders was a show that must have been in the 90s as well. Had what was his face? Jerry O'Quinn, was that his name? Jerry, the guy that was in Stand By Me. He was really fat in Stand By Me, then he got really athletic. But
yeah.
It had Jonathan Rhys-Davies in it, actually, bizarrely. It's basically about going into parallel versions of Earth, and then in those parallel versions of Earth, slightly different things have happened. Like the Russians won the Second World War, or the British never lost the not the Civil War, whatever, before the War of Independence, that kind of thing. There's always a subtle difference. So it's kind of a mirror of what's happening. Good show. It started to get really shit later on. It got really badly written.
Oh, okay.
Good show. Good concept, though.
Good concept. Oh, so I guess this sort of section really is a bit more of a free for all. I guess it was just sort of, are there any sort of standout films for you? Time loop film. We'll talk about films first. Is there anything that sort of stands out positively or negatively? What's done well? What's not done well? Is there anything that sort of comes to mind in recent for you?
I mean, as a specific film?
Yes.
I mean, Source Code is probably the best place to start, because that kind of was the first proper sci-fi version of that concept for us, and it has Jake Gyllenhaal in it as well, doesn't it? So
there we go. You won me with that.
When was that? 2011, I think. I was looking at it earlier on. The other thing about a lot of these films I quite like is then they're generally around about 90 minutes long. Not too much.
Yeah, that is true.
Not too much faff.
Yeah.
Involved in them, because as I said, the concept doesn't really allow itself to be 2 hours. The only real exception is probably Edge of Tomorrow, but that's quite a big summer blockbuster.
Yes,
and it has the greatest performer of our time in it, and Tom Cruise. So you'd expect that to get a bit more leeway. But Source Code is very tight.
Some people don't class Source Code as a time loop film.
Your man says it. When I watched it the other day, I realised, because it's got your man in it from Westworld. What's his name? The guy who did the voice of the Watcher.
Oh, yeah. I can't remember his name.
Anyway.
He was in French Dispatch as well recently.
Yeah, exactly. At one point, he says something, doesn't he? Like, it's not time travel, it's time realignment.
Yes.
He really weirdly lampshades the fact, like, it's not time travel, because it isn't technically. They're going into like a simulation, aren't they?
Yes.
It's not actually a loop, but it is for all intents and purposes, isn't it? For the dramatic purposes, it's exactly what it is.
Yeah, reliving a scenario again and again till you find this thing, this what you have to find. Therefore, I guess it is a time loop, but just not conventional. But I guess, like you said, that was the one that sort of stemmed a lot of like newer sort of looks at time loop films. I mean, ones that I've got written down, like after that, we've got About Time, which is one of my favourite, which I would class as sort of loopy, a bit of time loop within there, time travel. About Time is Rachel McAdams and
your man,
Donald Gleeson, not Brendan Gleeson, that's his dad. So that's a little bit time. You got Palm Springs, Edge of Tomorrow. There's so many things that came after that sort of era. Oh, thank you very much for the follow. All over my face. But yeah, So I guess it was interesting. Like, I wonder why it was that film that sort of made Hollywood, especially, sort of change and think this is a money making scheme. This is a story that people want to hear. Um,
I mean,
I'm not too sure.
it's a Jake Gyllenhaal. I mean, at that point, 2011, he was probably, I mean, he's big now, obviously, but I mean, he must have been kicking about in some reasonably big stuff at the time. Duncan Jones had probably done Moon. Was Moon before that or after that? Was it before Moon? Was this his first film?
I think Moon was after.
Yeah, it probably was actually.
Moon
Yeah, it's
is
weird. I didn't until I rewatched it recently. It's excellent. I hadn't watched it for ages, and I really, really enjoyed it. I remember part of the reason
2009, so it's
what Moon
before.
was.
Yeah, so it's
There
before.
you go.
Before.
Moon is excellent. It's what I really like about it is, and I'm going to be a bit thirsty. It's got Michelle Monaghan in it, who I really like. But I really like Michelle Monaghan because I saw her in. She's in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, and
Oh
she's
yes.
Mission Impossible, but she's amazing in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. But she's one of those people. She's just very natural. Like that, the whole kind of chemistry between the two of them is very enjoyable to watch. It's a very strange film in the sense that it does a lot of looping at the start. Like the first loop happens after about 6 minutes. It's very sudden. He wakes up on the train. She says to him, "Oh, you know what you're doing," and then he has the thing. Bloke walks past with a bike. Wallet gets dropped. Coffee gets spilled. It's got all those sort of key beats, hasn't it? And it explodes and it resets and then it goes on like that. And it's a bit
Yeah.
Mancunian Candidate, isn't it, with the playing cards and there's all the mystery about the pod and all that sort of stuff. But it's really about Jake Gyllenhaal, and he wants to talk to his dad, doesn't he? And Vera Farmiga, who I really like as well, was trying to help him.
Yes.
And it's got a really weirdly bold sort of third act because I didn't really realise till I watched it that they basically solved the bomb plot within about an hour, and the last half hour is basically just everyone having a nice time. It's really wholesome. At the end, he gets the comedian to do the bit, and he gets the phone, speaks to his dad, and then
Yeah.
they both go run away. It's got it's
Very
quite
life affirming, I guess,
yeah,
towards the
it's
end.
really bold. Again, you probably wouldn't have got that if it wasn't Duncan Jones. He probably had a bit of control over
Yeah.
how that was going to go. But normally those sort of films are either like Groundhog Day or Map of Tiny Perfect Things, quite affirming all the way through, or their action with the sort of video game element, whereas that's quite a weird mix of both. It has a huge amount of payoff
Yeah.
in a nice way. It's very, very nice. It's very, very wholesome, and I really like it. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, it kicked off a slew of. There's loads of them after that. You're absolutely drowning in time loop films from about 2014 onwards. You get
Yeah.
monsters of them kicking about.
There's so many. And I think I would say generally I think they're all pretty good. I think there's only a few that I've seen, and husband's in the chat, and we watched one what day is it? We watched one last week, and it was The Final Girls, which I've heard recommended to me before.
I did. Wow, I'd take issue with that being a terrible film.
I'm not using the word terrible. I just personally didn't like it. I think because I've come off the bat of because it was like the Scream, 25th anniversary. I'd watched Scream again, and I was like, okay, you're very like there's a character in it that literally is another character in Scream explaining this is the rules, this is what you should do, shouldn't do. And I was just like, for
It's
God's
very
sake.
derivative, isn't it? I mean, Final Girls, the genre is very derivative, isn't it? Deliberately, but yeah, and weirdly, I thought it was more of a time loop film than it is. Well, I watched it the other day actually, Final Girls again. And I forgot it doesn't actually really loop at all. They just have the bit at the start where the film resets about 3 times, and then after that, it doesn't really loop. They're just in the film. Aren't
Yeah,
they?
that's true. That is
They
true.
know what's
Yeah.
coming, and then the guy who knows the film gets killed because he needs to be for the plot to move on, and then they're just doing the thing. It is weirdly more Final Girls than it is time loop, but I quite enjoyed it. I like Final Girls stuff. I'm a big fan of that sort of thing. But and it's got Malin Ackerman in it. I like Malin Ackerman, so
And Vera Farmiga's sister
Vera Farmiga's,
as well.
yeah, she's always very good. If you like American Horror Story.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say I watched a time loop film recently that was dreadful. I watched Boss Level on.
Oh, I've never even heard of that.
So it's
Sell it to me.
It's a really good example of how actually it is more difficult than you'd think to make a good time loop film, and the fact that they're all good means that people have put some effort into them, because you can't just want to make one and it materialize and be perfect, because Boss Level exists. You'll know it if you saw it, because it's the one that's got Mel Gibson in it. So it
No,
came out
I've definitely not seen it.
Last year, it's got Mel Gibson in. Absolute garbage bloke, kicking about in terms, proving that that sort of cancel culture doesn't really exist for rich white people.
Mm,
It's not a thing, you know.
yeah.
Like, I was
Ah.
considering getting into racism, but realistically, I'm quite busy at work and I don't really have enough time for all the opportunities that will come my way afterwards. So I have to give it a steer. It's just a bit of a nightmare. Um, yeah, I'd almost say it's worth watching because it's so shit.
I'm
Essentially,
just looking at the poster now. It's
it
got the
does.
guy
Frank Grillo. I quite
out of
like
Winter
Frank Grillo.
Soldier and stuff, isn't he?
He's quite good. I'll tell you who else got in it. It's got bloody Naomi Watts. I felt really sorry for her.
What's she doing in that
Couldn't
film?
understand why she was in it. Like, she is better than that. There's a bit at the end where they're talking about what the gist of it is, and Naomi Watts says something like, "This whole thing was just cobbled together." And I was like, "Yeah, that's a very meta phrase you just used to describe this film that you're weirdly in." It's got like Lucy Liu's in it as well. I think it's got a weirdly good
Wow.
cast.
They must have had a lot of money then, surely.
It is horrible, and it you can see it does all the things it should do. Like at the start, he wakes up in bed and he gets attacked by an assassin, and it does this thing where he knows every single thing the assassin's going to do, which generally a lot of them do. Like Groundhog Day, there's that whole sequence where he goes and like saves the person falling out of the tree and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But it's a terrible version of it because all of those things are one person interacting with loads of other things occurring, whereas this is Frank Grillo and one bloke having a fight. It just looks, it's really really shite. And it's just awful. It's got horrible narration. It's got loads of awful dialogue. It's like one of those films where it's got. I'm a big fan of swearing in films, but
Yeah.
it adds loads of swearing for the sake of it because swearing's cool.
Right.
It's that kind of. It's just awful. It's an awful film, and it's quite racist.
Oh god. And it was made last year. Well, came out last
Yeah,
year.
it's just a bit. It's a bit.
Oh dear.
It's got Mel Gibson in it, but it's got Naomi Watts. What? Naomi Watts.
You go from Mulholland Drive to that. You're like, what are you
I was
doing?
going to write that to my MB. I thought she'd need some sort of support.
I mean, Made in a Sweatshop says it's 45 million budget, made 2 million.
Fuck, I'm not surprised. It's a lot of
So,
money.
plus it came out in a pandemic, so
It's
it's
horrible.
also that.
It's a
Don't pay
horrible-
money to see this film.
It's one of the
people.
worst ones I've ever seen. Like time loop films aside, it is
Wow, it's that bad.
dreadful. Yeah, you'd be desperate to watch Final Girls after you watch Boss Level.
Please let me watch Final Girls one more time.
Yeah, it's. But outside of that, there's not really. I've not seen. Oh no, actually, I did watch Mind Games, which is on Prime.
No, I've not
Which
seen
is
that one.
sort of not looping, but it's one of those ones where lots of stuff's happening at once. That's quite terrible.
That's something like you're saying stuff now, like I've not even heard of it because it's like
just
such
so
a
many.
popular thing, and I'm just like, I can't see all of them like in
I
this.
watched two this week that I've never seen before. And that's how many of them now.
Yeah.
You can't move for time loop films.
Yeah.
It's sort of ironic, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah. I sort of wanted to touch upon. I watched two last year in lockdown, I guess, or second lockdown, whatever it was, and that was Palm Springs and Map of Tiny Perfect Things. So sort of new releases and they both sort of came out spookily at the same time. And I enjoyed both of them. I think they're both very fun, interesting. One's a bit more sort of heartfelt, I would say, but like Palm Springs is fun, it's a good time, but it does have those sort of like more emotional undertones that, Andy Samberg sometimes does. And then Map of Tiny Perfect Things, again, it's like coming into this guy who's sort of very positive, like, oh, this is my day, I'm going to say hello to that person at this time and, walk over here. And then there's a bit of a twist, shall I say. I'm not going to sort of really go into it, but, it takes a different perspective. But I thought it was really interesting that those two films came out at the same time in a pandemic. And I think they obviously did get a lot of love, whether it was timing or stuff. But I just thought it was spooky that they came out at the same time, but they're both really, really good. Really good films.
They're both excellent, and they both benefit from the problem that Groundhog Day has is that they live in a world like both of those films mention Groundhog Day. I think. They
I
reference
think
it.
so.
Map of Tiny Perfect Things mentions Groundhog Day and Edge of Tomorrow. I think at one point. But they both live in a world where that film already exists, so they have the beauty of when you join the main character, they've already done hundreds of loops, so you don't have to have all the initial. I've just discovered them in a time loop thing. You can kick like the opening sequence of Map of Tiny Perfect Things is the much better version of the one from Boss Level, where he goes in and catches the mug and catches the toast and takes the tongs.
Yeah.
And then there's that there's one sort of long shot that looks like a single tracking shot where he rides his bike and he like takes the
Yeah,
coffee
yeah,
and helps
yeah,
the
yeah,
thing and chucks, and it's a very nicely put together sequence, but it gives you what you need to know, but only because Groundhog Day's done the heavy lifting in the past, hasn't it?
yeah.
Yeah,
It's
they're both very good, and you're right, the Muppet Time I think it does that really nice rug pull towards the end where it does twitch the thing and make you reassess what the film was kind of about and what the purpose of it. That's a very interesting. That's got loads of talk about. She talks about like bloody fourth dimensional. We're just shadows of fourth dimensional beings and
yeah,
stuff at one point, and it's very heavy into like Sisyphus gets mentioned a few times in that one. It's
it's very
very into it.
sciencey, that
There's
one.
lots of physics in that one, which I like. It's a bit more. There's a bit more to that from that kind of aspect. There is a weird bit towards the end where I watched it the other day. She does suddenly at one point she does like the light and shadow puzzle from Resident Evil 7 to work out how to fix the day.
Yeah,
That's a really weird bit. It's like, oh, yeah,
yeah,
we fixed it. It's like, you probably didn't need to explain how to fix it.
yeah. There's a lot of pop culture references
fixed.
in that one, and I was like, you could just tell. I don't know who the director is, but you can just tell sometimes with things like, I'm thinking like Stranger Things, for example. They want to get those pop culture references in, within their own sort of stories, and I felt that was doing that a little bit at times. The guy who just plays like the video games, like. You wanted him to leave the room and like do something else, like go off and have your own sort of narrative.
Yeah,
But
have an adventure. Be the centre of someone out of your own story, not just a side character. And
exactly,
it's a nice film. I liked it a lot. And both I can't remember a man's name, but Catherine Newton, she's very good. It's just a nice,
yeah.
little film. Palm Springs is a weird one because again at the start you feel like it's going to be like that until the bit where he gets shot by the arrow. And then it's like really weird, like what the fuck? This is a different film than I thought it was going to be. But then it does settle down again into a bit more of a. It's a bit about science, but it's also about learning stuff.
Yeah. That's when I went into that film, I just heard good things, and I think it had a bit of a run at festivals before lockdown and stuff. And I was like, I'm going to watch it. I had no idea what it was about. I didn't even know it was a time loop film. So, like you said, when he gets shot for the first, I'm like, oh shit. So that really surprised me, which I think was the best way to go into it. I hadn't seen a trailer, hadn't seen anything. So I was like, that just added to the experience for me of that one. But I'd like to revisit them again and see if like my opinion's changed, or if it's just that first watch kind of like, oh my god, this is amazing kind of reaction.
It's true. As a genre, it's a sort of genre where you do almost need to watch them twice. Not because, I mean, I saw someone mention Primer a minute ago. Primer you have to watch twice because it doesn't make sense when you watch it once, because narratively it's set up to not be understandable. It's a bit of a nightmare. Great film, but whereas all the other ones, the point you're making is, do they work when you know the thing? When you know the thing, especially the ones that are like a bit more of an unfolding mystery, where you're getting each time the person dies, for example, you find out a bit more, and so does that work? Second time, a bit like Memento, like watching Memento the second time, is it as good? Probably.
Yeah. I guess you could argue either way, couldn't you? Like with any film, it doesn't have to be a time loop film, but you could say, now I know the plot devices. I listened to podcasts just before we came on here, and it was Brett Goldstein's podcast, and he was saying, I think he might even quote someone else, but he said like, once you know the plot, once you know the twists, what makes it rewatchable is the dialogue. Are you going to go back for this well-written sort of script, even though you know what's going to happen? What's drawing you back? And I guess with the time loop, I think it's a bit easier because you're analysing, certain things. So there were certain things when I went back and watched the episodes that we mentioned, like the Supernatural, Buffy, Angel. I went back and watched those, which I'd seen already, and I was literally looking at extras. I wasn't really watching the main characters. I was watching their actions and like movements and things like that. So I guess with this sort of subcategory, I think it works easier compared to a normal film. Maybe, I'm not too sure.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean, definitely. And that's where the ones that have got a bit more going on. Because the problem is, if you don't like Bill Murray or you don't like Andy Samberg, then you probably aren't going to want to rewatch those two films because they don't have there's not another layer to them outside of this person needs to learn to be better, rather than something like can't think of a good example. Source Code there's a bit more going on there.
Yeah, I think it's interesting as well. Well, I think it's only those two films I can think of, but like comedians in that role, like why would a comedian be drawn to this role? I'm not sure if there's some kind of deeper thing there. don't know. It's just come to me.
Yeah, I think there's limited mileage on that, isn't there? It works better as a horror sci-fi. I'm surprised there's not more horror kicking about in the genre. There's a fair few of them, but not as many as you'd think. Because again, it lends itself to, because in horror you don't really need to explain it. You haven't got to get tied up with the why and the wherefore. You just go horror.
Yeah. Whereas everything else is sort of grounded in some sort of reality, aren't they? But when it's horror or sci-fi, I think you get a bit more leniency. Like I know one that I wasn't able to watch, but that kept coming up was, is it Happy Death Day? That's one
Yes.
I wasn't able to watch that one. But what did you think of that film?
I really enjoyed that. I watched the second one in the cinema. I was a big fan. That's quite an interesting one because it follows that sort of. Again, I think it mentions Groundhog Day in it. Again, it's quite referential like that, but it has the added element of the main character is in the loop. She obviously keeps looping back, but someone is actively trying to murder her. So
Yeah.
there is an extra thing that she's trying to solve the mystery as she goes and trying not to get murdered multiple times. I quite liked it. I understand people probably wouldn't necessarily, but it doesn't.
Is it quite a
explain it,
serious
doesn't really
horror?
care. No, it's very, very, very light-hearted.
Oh, okay.
There's obviously emotional elements to it, but it falls into that, funny, not funny horror. What would you call it? That kind of camp slasher horror.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's hard, it's not trying to scare the shit out of you. It's just trying to tell a bit of the story and be horror. No, they're good. They're both good films. The second one does go a bit more sciencey.
Okay.
Yeah, I quite like both of them. It's got a very nice sequence of these are the things that she sees every day, and then later on when she goes around and stops them all happening, it's quite a nice payoff.
Yeah. That's good. That's what you want from a time film, at least.
It is that again, it follows that model of she's a bit of a cow at the start, and then she learns to not be a cow.
Yes, you must change, therefore, to break.
You have to
What if I'm happy being a dickhead? What if that's how I want to be? Who says? Who says? I'm just catching up with chat a little bit, just seeing what people are saying. Cal says, the one I love is not a time loop one specifically, but a similar wheelhouse and is very good if you've not seen it. I don't know that one. The one I love. No, don't know that one. That people are talking about Interstellar, apparently.
Yeah, it counts.
There's that. Yeah, I guess it is. I'm not a fan of the film as a whole, personally. No. I think it's just a bit pants. Where we got Interstellar. Just Cal says, I'm now just learning Palm Springs as a time loop film. I think that's a joke, sure.
I don't think it was marketed that heavily as being a...
No, I don't think it was. I remember just seeing the poster and it was just Andy Samberg and I can't remember the lead actress. She was in How I Met Your Mother, wasn't she? And stuff. And
Black Mirror. She's in the Starship episode of Black Mirror.
Yes, she was. Oh God, I don't know. But her name's Sarah in the film. I remember that. I always remember characters that called my name. I'm like, for God's sake, stop calling me. A law should be passed legally mandating all films to be less than 90 minutes. I agree, Cal. I think 90 minutes is a perfect amount for any film, really. 2 hours max. If you can't tell the story in that time, I don't.
Yeah, very much so. I've got a weird thing with films where I've got a little list of. So years ago, when I worked in retail, I had a lot of days off during the week, so I had a lot of time for watching shit films. And then when I was furloughed last year, I had a bit more, that sort of time where, because you haven't got Mrs. Duggan's at work, and so got plenty of time. I can afford to waste time watching something that might be shit, but if it, can cope. So I generally applied a rule set to films, which was they needed to be about 90 minutes, just in case they were shite, then at least I know I'm not sinking loads of time into it. Yeah. Ideally, feature someone that I like or know from somewhere else, but low key, so not Emily Blunt. That's mental. I'll obviously watch all of Emily Blunt's films. We're talking
already done it.
It's got Julie Benz. She played Darla in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Sold. I'll watch that. Yeah. So I know I'm going to get some level of enjoyment out of it, regardless of how terrible.
It's keeping you there, at least, like the actor.
Ideally, have a small cast. Bonus points if it could be a play. Quite often you get a lot of stuff that's just single location work. Yeah. And then I always double check and make sure it's got a rating of about sort of 6 or higher on the IMDb. That's not a perfect rating system, but anything that's rated 5 or lower generally is a bit of a turd. But if it's sort of 6, 6.5, 7, what that generally means is it's probably quite good. A lot of people have voted it lower because they didn't like it because there's too much talking in it. And then what you find is there's quite a lot of good films kicking about in that sort of category because they haven't got a lot of budget, so they're generally better written. They've got better dialogue.
Yeah.
They're shot better because the people are really sweating the dollars that have gone into it rather than fucking boss level $45 million worth of just janky special effects. Whereas you get quite a lot of good sci-fi and horror that doesn't really have a lot of special effects because I afford it. So it has.
Yeah. If you go back, 40, 50 years, horror was very much a cheap genre of film.
And what you find is loads of these time loop films are about 90 minutes. They fall into that category perfectly.
Yeah.
Just watch loads and all that. But yeah, you do get some good stuff kicking about in there.
That's a good way of doing it, just really sort of filing down. Like you can even do that, can't you? I think on IMDb or other whatever sort of ranking things. Yeah, you can do that. So that's a very handy way to do it. I'll definitely watch a time loop TV series if it was done well. Is there a specific one?
So Russian Doll, that came out a few years ago.
I've never seen that.
That was all time loop. If you're a fan of this is not a very good program, but Eliza Dushku was in True Calling back in the noughties. That was essentially a Groundhog Day TV series. She worked in a morgue, I think, and every day someone obviously died, and then she woke up and it was the morning of that day, so she had to stop the murder before they came to the morgue.
Oh,
it's not a great business model for a morgue, I'll grant you, but
you're losing customers.
Slightly, but it wasn't very good, I don't think. Which is a shame. That was a premise. The show was completely built around it being a time loop thing, essentially.
Maybe it was ahead of its time. Maybe the concept just ran out as well. Maybe it's just limited. Oh God, is Andy Samberg the new Bill Murray? Started in SNL, done a ton of movies, punchable face, not everyone's cup of tea. I mean,
I wouldn't say he's Marmite, but yeah, I can.
I don't think he's that bad. I've not seen him in many things.
I like him.
I've seen like most of his like Lonely Island stuff. I've never watched Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
It's very good.
I've seen Palm Springs. That's probably my Andy Samberg watch.
Popstar is very good. Never stop.
Never
Not stopping. It's very good. There's some very good songs in that. There's some quite well. I don't know how of its time it is, but it's very well observed when it was around.
Yeah.
Yeah, I quite like him. Yeah, if you don't, then I can see why you wouldn't like some stuff. It's a bit of fluff there.
I have no. People have just gone off. On. Husband says these are the rules I apply to my random horror watches. 6 or above, and you're golden. Yeah, I guess.
If it's low, it generally is terrible. That is, and I've watched a few to sort of. To quantify the rating system, there are some turds in there. Yeah, 6 is generally people have voted it low because they thought it was going to be like loads of action or loads of horror, and actually it's a bit more thinking. So
too much brain power.
Yeah, it was just all talking. Oh no, one nightmare, not talking.
I have to think. How
you can do? How are you going to cope? Learn something.
So I guess I'll sort of move on to sort of more sort of like TV episodes. We can jump back to films, whenever, but I know there's a few TV episodes we've already touched upon. Was there any sort of that sort of stood out to you? I know you mentioned X-Files, Buffy,
X-Files, well, I really wanted to rewatch that and I didn't know where I'd find it. That's a very good one. There's a weird mix with TV, I think. There's 2 ways to go, isn't there, essentially? And that's true of all gimmick episodes. Is you either do it as it's a funny one, or it's actually really integral to the overall arc, or has some really good characterization in it, which is just a question. So the X-Files one, quite a serious program anyway. I'm pretty sure the Loop episode...
Is it called Monday?
Monday, yeah. Mulder gets shot. It's very much one of the funny ones. And I think it's weird because the person who has the Loop isn't either Mulder or Scully, it's another person. It's nice. The X-Files did that sort of subversive episode quite a lot, whereas the other half of that is the Angel episode is very heavy. That's right at the end of the final stage. It's very much about Fred and Gunn and your man Wesley, and it's very shocking when the first bit of the Loop happens and I think Spike gets killed first. Possibly.
It does. Yeah, because I was really shocked when I went back and watched it because I was like looking up, timed episodes, and then I looked at the episode and it was like season 5, episode 9. I was like, I know Angel finishes in like 2 episodes, and there's a time loop right near the end. I mean, it's very minimal within the episode, like it's I don't know, like a fifth of the actual episode sort of content, but it's interesting they put it so late on. But like you said, it's more of a serious sort of look at the time loop element within that episode.
The Buffy one's quite light, isn't it? It's about her quite a mundane. She's not long back from the dead, is she? And it's
episode 5.
Is what normal life is about. But to be fair, what it's doing there, I think, is not long after that you get once more a feeling.
Yeah.
So it's doing this is mundanity. Then you get the gimmick episode with loads of heavy plot lifting, and then tabula rasas after that, and there's loads of It moves on quite, but it is played as a kind of. This is a bit of a nightmare for her.
Yeah, it isn't it? Like, because when I was going back watching it, I thought it was interesting because obviously she's trying all these different jobs. Because she needs to make money because it's just her and her sister, and she goes on to like the building site and stuff, and that's all. It's all good fun. But it's just interesting because there's also like, I guess, like a serious undertone there. Like she's having to provide for a family. I think she's still in college at this point, and it's this decision making, and like. I think there is a serious undertone, but it is very much written as a comedic thing.
Yeah.
And I realised how much I forgot how much I hated like the villains of season 6. The 3 guys.
The trio,
I was just like,
that's the one they've got the Death Star van, haven't they? He leans on there.
And the horn goes off on the building site, and I was like, oh god.
You look back at that sort of thing now, and you think, you should have named Josephine as a wrong one.
I know. I was like, it's just a writing himself, isn't it? It's just. Yeah, it's interesting, that one. That was like I'd say that one's almost like a hybrid of like comedic and sort of pushing the plot along, I would say, because she sort of in that turn she sort of speaks out to people, speaks to her friends, she speaks to Giles, and Giles helps her financially, so they are quite pivotal. I
suppose what you used to get back in the old days is that seasons were always 20, 24 episodes, so you had loads of collateral for having episodes like that, whereas these days they're sweated a bit harder, which is better, so you need to decide if you want to use it or if you just want to play it for a bit of a laugh. That's your big choice, and you can, so they are used really well. I watched the one Legends of Tomorrow one is very good, so it comes just after a new character's been introduced and she's not sort of part of the team. It's quite a big ensemble cast in Legends, and then she gets caught in a time loop, and essentially it's used as a way to kind of integrate her. It's very comedy, but it's also very kind of character driven of this is what Zari's going to do. We're going to integrate her with the crew. We're going to learn some things about people that are still, callback jokes years later. It's quite a nice use of that sort of that device to let you do some character work. To get you where you need to be for people.
I've never seen Legends of Tomorrow, but I watched The Flash, I think, up until season 3, and I just stopped there. And then they carried things on, and they did crossovers, and I was like, nope.
Yeah, The Flash has got it very
checking out.
Yeah, Legends is that's the only one of those shows that's still quite enjoyable. The rest of them are very grim.
Is that because you have the crossover, like multiple characters?
No, the writing gets really shit. They just again, they're victims of 20 plus episode seasons. If there's too much episodes for the writing, so it's just all strung out, and it's
you've got that one villain that's like overarching, and then like just random things in between.
It becomes very torturous to watch. But yeah, they are good. I watched. Did you watch Agents of Shield?
No, I didn't watch that. No.
The last series of that's got a really good time loop episode, and it knows it's in the last series. So the last series of programs are always a bit looser in terms of wrapping stuff up and things. It does a lot of really nice character work and a lot of sort of calling back stuff and just getting people to have some nice chats. There's a lot of funny bits in it. It does a lot of quite good visual humour, but then it still has there's a big gut punch at the end. There's quite a big pull. It has a really meaty finish to it, which is nice. I like it when, like you said, it's not just a gimmick for the sake of the gimmick. It's what are we actually going to do? How's this going to benefit the programme, rather than just being time loops are trendy. Let's make an episode about it. People will love it.
I guess like I feel like the TV episodes, like, so I guess it links to, like you said, like they get 22, 24 episodes a season. They have that room to play. So I feel like there was that when there was a gap in film doing time loop. I guess TV was like because everyone still loves, like all the writers obviously love film, so they're like, I wanted to try and have a go at that. Or like you get people in like I was thinking about the other day about in Always Sunny, like they do like a black and white, like 1920s gangster one in the last series. And you're like, it's just, it gives the writers sort of freedom, these sort of homages to cinema and try things out. So I guess it's a better platform maybe to try these things. And it's obviously shorter episodes. So, it could be 40 minutes, half an hour. Whereas if you're like, oh, I'm going to watch an hour and a half-ish kind of film, could it get a bit tedious? Maybe. But I think they work quite well in an episode, if not better than a film.
No, I agree. And it also gives you that what if element. Angel does it, that Shield episode. The Arrow one's the same. You get that what if element of, we can kill the people because they're going to get brought back, but we can still use that emotional impact of, we're going to kill some main characters. Hey!
Yeah.
But again, you still need to write that properly. You can't just do it and go, people will love this, because it doesn't work. It has to have some, some meaning to it and some resonance. You need to be able to buy into it, don't you? To be engaged enough that you're like, fuck, Spike got fucking killed.
Yeah.
But, he might be dead because there's only 4 episodes left in the season.
Even though he's a ghost anyway, you're like, oh. Yeah, he just like materialised. You're like, oh, okay, he's dead anyway. But spoilers for a show that came out, a long time ago. Another fun episode that I watched sort of in preparation for it was Supernatural. I don't know if you ever watched Supernatural.
No, I saw it had one though, yeah.
I gave up on it at like season 10. It went on for too long. But season 3, there is a time loop episode called Mystery Spot, and that is a fun one. Like, I went back and I actually laughed out loud. Like, it was a fun one. It's very much an homage to Groundhog Day. It even starts with the clock radio, like not playing the same song. Really? It's like some like 80s rock, and then they go to a diner, which obviously is quite a big thing about Groundhog Day. There's those diner scenes, and they mention it, and they mention, what else did they mention? I think they mentioned something else. I can't remember, but that one is fun, and it's just like, it's the montages of like someone getting killed like in all these different ways, which I think Edge of Tomorrow touches upon a little bit. I think there's a few moments in there with Tom Cruise that really made me laugh. I don't know if they were supposed to make you laugh, but they did.
Yeah, the training montage is supposed to very much be. One time he doesn't die and she shoots him. This is that whole kind of just playing the laugh bit of haha.
Yeah.
This person's in terrible like pain. Philosophical anxiety. And pain as well.
Yeah. So I really, well, that's probably one of my favourite TV episodes. I think it's better than Buffy and Angel because it's a bit more silly. There is a bit of a plot in there somewhere, like about a reappearing villain, shall we say, or god that appears that was thought they killed 2 episodes before, and it's like Trickster just sort of doing this loop thing. But I think that was fun, and I think it's before the show got pretty bad, but it's a fun episode. I'd really recommend it. You could watch it without knowing the show, because they always give you like the previously on.
Yeah.
It's like just a little bit of setup, but that's one of my favourite TV loops. But yeah, I'm just going to... There you go.
The Person of Interest one. So have you ever seen Person of Interest?
No, I don't think so.
That is an amazing programme that weirdly is not very well known, and I don't mean that in like a wanky kind of, no one knows about this programme apart from me. It's just never really on. It was on Channel 5, but like always about a year after it being on in America. It's not very...
Right.
It's on Net Prime, I think, now, but really hard to get hold of. But that it's done by Jonathan Nolan, and speaking of Interstellar, it's done by the better Nolan and Lisa Joy, who did Westworld as well. And it's kind of near future. It's not really sci-fi. It's basically sci-fi masquerading as non-sci-fi to trick people that don't like sci-fi into watching it.
Right.
And it's about a machine that spies on people. But they do a time loop episode, which is amazing, and again comes quite late on in the run, and it has some huge character bits in it. But it's one that it's rated 9.9 on the IMDb. It's the highest rated episode of the whole show. I mean, that's a program that has, because so few people have really watched it, generally all the episodes are rated pretty high. But there's a few episodes on that are just, it's the best of the episodes as well. It's a very, very clever use of, because it isn't really a time loop. Again, it's because there's no sci-fi or magic or anything, no fancy stuff in there. So it just does it as like a sort of, these are permutations of probable. It's about probability essentially.
Okay.
But it's very, very good. You couldn't watch it as a standalone, unfortunately, but it's an excellent show. But yeah, it's like the highest rated episode. Crazy.
It's on Prime, so it's included in Prime, so I'll add that to the list. Definitely.
Really
amazing.
Good. Really good writing.
That's good to hear. Yeah. And you say it was the other Nolan Nolan's brother.
Yeah, Jonathan Nolan.
I mean,
All the good Chris Nolan films are the ones that Jonathan Nolan wrote.
yes, that is true. However, Mank was pants.
Yeah, I've not seen that. I've not heard it's very good. No,
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good. It's just his ode to Citizen Kane, basically. It's not good in my opinion, anyway.
That's a shame.
Let's just have a quick look and see what people are saying. True Calling was a 24-hour version of Quantum Leap, basically. Mm.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I watched Paul Kaczynski play that game. That looked interesting. I prefer Andy Samberg to Ryan Reynolds, but think they're actually the same person from parallel universes. One where he discovers the gym, one where he discovers fart jokes. Thanks, Tommy.
Quite possible.
Isn't there a great episode of Firefly where they loop time after a bomb blast or something? I've never seen Firefly.
Yeah, it is. How does that get caused? That's a good point. I forgot about that one.
Joss Whedon again.
Yeah.
Oh, and then Made in Destruction isn't that Farscape? Which is what I'm watching.
Farscape's pretty mad, to be fair.
I'm watching Farscape very slowly at the minute, but I am on series
Some
1
great
still.
sci-fi concepts in that. When you get through it, it goes mad in a good way, and it fully embraces it. This prey goes mad. Don't worry about it. Just come along with us.
We've got puppets. We've got creatures. Where do you want?
Keep going.
The Fringe time loop episode is very well done. Bearing in mind that the show went very batshit.
That is, I bloody love Fringe. That is an excellent episode. That's also got your man in, the one we were talking about the other day, who's in Man and Medan, the twins bloke.
Oh, the twins.
Geezer from
I never remember.
X-Men. Ashworth. Aaron, Sean, Ashmore.
One of
Ashworth. Them. Yeah, Fringe had a load of that. Did a black and white episode, did a musical episode. They did all sorts of the time loop episodes. Because again, I think it's got a very poignant. I'm not seeing it for ages, so I'll rewatch it. But I think it's got a very kind of, oh, that's really sad.
Oh, okay.
The reason why it's happened is actually really grim. It's not funny at all.
Oh, it's got the guy out of Dawson's Creek guy.
He's excellent. Pacey, brilliant.
That's the one.
He from Mighty Ducks. Yeah.
Oh yes, Mighty Ducks.
He's very, very good. And it's got Anna Torv, who, unsurprisingly, I really like. She's excellent.
Just adding all these great TV shows to my lists. That's what's come out of this. Surprised I didn't get a tiny episode of Eureka or Warehouse 13. Says Made in a Sweatshop.
Thought there would have been one of them. Never really watched either of those programs, but they're both pretty wild.
Yeah, I think it's always ones that I've always just seen on like a Sky channel just randomly that I've never watched. Like you might tune in for like 10 minutes, but I've never watched them properly. Lois and Clark had a time loop. The TV short TV series. Yeah. Too many Superman TV shows. That's all I see. It's like another Superman show. Supernatural pokes fun, but also helps the story of the series. Yeah, I think I got to see the
what you want that balance, don't you, of moving it along and doing a thing and also having fun. And quite often they're quite self-referential. They should be like poking fun at themselves a little bit. I think it's good to be self-deprecating as a program when you're doing that kind of episode. You can afford to be a little bit. It's a bit meta.
Yeah. That's it.
Laugh with it.
That's it. Person of interest is High Tech Knight Rider.
That's harsh. Depends about what. Unless you think Knight Rider's amazing, in which case that's a spot on description.
Nolan Vision. It's like Chuckle Vision, but a lot darker and shot in IMAX. Always shot with IMAX camera. Hello, Pats. How you doing? Welcome on in. But Black Mirror has made some shite time loop crap. What with the phones? But has it? I don't think it's done a time loop episode, has it? Black Mirror.
Did it? Wasn't. Hang on. Wasn't. There was that Christmas one that was like 3
White
stories.
Christmas.
Yeah, but wasn't the base point of the 3 stories.
It's John Hamm, isn't it?
John Hamm in that cabin, and it's not time loop, but he's trapped in there. It has a musical thing that's the repetition.
I don't know if it's a time loop.
That's happening while they're doing the other stories, aren't they? But yeah, they must have done a time loop, so I'd be very, very surprised.
I guess it's happening sort of parallel. I don't know if it's actually. I don't know. What are the rules? I don't know.
I suppose Black Mirror, the argument would be that the whole setup of that show is just it's all subversive, dark things, isn't it? So is time loop too easier thing to go to?
I guess it is. I mean, yeah, Charlie Brooker more looks at the sort of societal things rather than science in that sense. I guess he looks at like technology, sort of science and stuff, but not really. Black holes and stuff.
San Junipero sort of, it's not a time loop, but it involves decades.
Yeah, that's true.
It's all still it's time manipulation, isn't it? And it's time. Again, it's adjacent, isn't it?
Which I can see you've got a poster of behind you. Is it your favourite Black Mirror episode?
That one. Or there's a really good run. That one, White Bear, I really like.
Yes, I agree. White Bear.
I mean,
White Bear's so good.
Scale from San Junipero, and Shut Up and Dance is also amazing. That is a horrible piece of TV. The kid in that who's in End of the Fucking World is amazing.
Alex Lawton, I think his name is it? Yeah.
Those three would be my three. Can't really choose. San Junipero is probably my favourite one in terms of I could watch that quite a lot.
Rewatchability.
It's quite wholesome, whereas Shut Up and Dance is fucking horrible.
Yeah, you hate that character.
It's so grim. Makes me feel weird now thinking about it.
Yeah.
Same with White Bear. I mean, to be fair, White Bear is a time loop episode in the sense that
it is. Yeah.
What is happening is the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to spoil it fully, but yeah, that character essentially is living their own time loop, I guess, with what they have to go through. Husband says he's not a fan of Black Mirror. I await your scorn. Should we just block him now, or?
Don't know why. Why would he not be?
Yeah, I mean, I'm intrigued. I thought that would be up husband's.
I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's obviously there's some weaker episodes, but I just think the concept and. I don't know. I think Charlie Brooker always is very self-reflective on that on society, like I said. And I think I even like the American when they sold it to America. I think they're good as well. There's some really good episodes in there.
San Junipero is from that run.
Yeah, I like the sort of the horror one as well with what's his face, Kurt Russell's son, who's now in everything.
The Resident Evil one. That's very, very good.
Yeah, I think.
Which again is a time manipulation kind of one because the thing at the end is very much like.
Oh, it was that quick.
The thing you thought was happening isn't the thing that was happening.
Yeah. Oh no, husband says we'll talk about it one night, Queen and McDuggan. Oh no, this sounds like a full-on TED talk that me and you are invited to. That we have
husbands round tables.
Yeah, that's it. We'll just let him talk for 2 hours.
Husbands will talk about like a program that everyone else likes.
Well, he's giving us a little teaser. He says it's on the nose, one note rubbish. It's going to age horribly, but I'm in a minority. I know.
Is it going to age horribly? The first one was the one where your man shags the pig, wasn't it?
Yes.
That probably still works now, doesn't it?
You can apply that to any leader.
I would think that probably still works all right.
Yeah. White Bear was season 2, I think.
Some of them don't. Like the Waldo one, probably doesn't work.
Yeah, things with the bees and the Waldo one are probably the weakest.
Kelly MacDonald's in that one, Queen, please.
She's good,
Kelly
but
MacDonald is in that
the story, I was like...
I wouldn't hear a bad word against that. It's very long, that episode. That one's like nearly an hour and a half. It's probably too long. Even with Kelly MacDonald, that's still a long run time for a thing about white bees. I would say. That probably is a bit on the nose, actually, that one as well. It's all about the hashtag and stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, he's in our head, you see? He's got in our heads.
Oh, this is exactly what we wanted to do.
Shoot it. Oh.
I mean, it's completely gone off track as soon as he's mentioned Black Mirror, and this is what he wanted.
It's because we just trying to work out if Black Mirror did a time loop episode. They didn't. Now we're talking about it.
I don't think it did, no.
Yeah.
Bandersnatch is a time loop in a way.
Yes.
I guess it is
Kind of.
in the sense of your decision making.
Yeah, it obeys some of the rules.
You yourself are in the time loop as a watcher, but then the characters also because you are controlling. I don't know. It's a bit meta. Inside Number 9 is better than Black Mirror. Fight me.
I mean,
Yes and no.
quite different, but yeah, they're.
There's some bad episodes in Inside Number 9 as well. I think it's not that both shows aren't perfect because you have like the odd episode that's like. Yeah, I expect so much from Inside Number 9 now when I watch it. So when that's not met, like there's some episode in the last series, like I was a bit disappointed. I want it to be scary, I want it to be twists, but you're looking for them. You know what we were saying earlier about you're looking for things. I think sometimes my expectations are a bit too high. But
yeah, and again that's why I quite like San Junipero, because at the end it's just wholesome. It's not everything's awful. Stuff can sometimes be nice, and it doesn't have to be all grim. As that reflects the world quite nicely, because sometimes there's too much grimness, and you need a bit of these people had a nice time and they had a happy ending. Thank fuck. It's not all paedophiles and people shagging pigs. It's mostly that. There's some nice stuff over here. So
yeah. Oh god, I love the descent, like of where we went from, like time loop films were nice. Now it's like this quote of like McDuggan saying, "Oh yeah, it's gone to shagging pigs."
It's just it always turns into paedophiles and government ministers, doesn't it?
Oh god.
Well, what do you do?
It always descends.
That's because Mel Gibson was at the start. The spectre of Mel Gibson lurking over this whole thing. You see.
It's all Mel Gibson's fault. That's what happened. As soon as you mentioned boss level, it's just it was always going to go there because we've already done this before, McDuggan. We've already done this chat before. Do you not remember?
As long as I haven't got to watch boss level again, then I don't mind having this chat multiple times.
The time loop is actually 2 weeks ago, and I mentioned this to you. We've got to do it all again. God, yeah. So I guess do you have any sort of final sort of thoughts, any sort of other comments that you've not sort of mentioned already regarding time loops and stuff?
What else did I watch?
Yeah, you can talk about more specific films or episodes.
We're not really talking about Edge of Tomorrow, ironically, which is Emily Blunt film.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, it's a weird one because it is a big. It's your man. What's his face?
Tom Cruise.
No, the bloke that directed it. What's his name?
I don't know.
He didn't he do like Orn and all that jazz? He's that geezer, isn't he?
Not really my cup of tea, to be honest.
I'm sure I did.
I mean, I like The Edge of Tomorrow. I mean, I don't like really.
Lyman. Yeah, he does a lot of Bourne films. I like it a lot because Emily Blunt in it, but I think that she's quite a good action lead and she should be in more action films. Personally,
yes,
that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
It's good. It does a thing that I quite like, which the episode of S.H.I.E.L.D. does, where there's quite a few times in the loop where you as the audience feel that you're experiencing it for the first time with the character, but then there's a little mini rug pull where actually the fitness bit where they go and see Domhnall Gleeson, and then it's playing out quite normally, and then something happens and Tom Cruise is like, yeah, this happens every time. You're like, fuck, he's already done this loads of times.
Yeah.
Shit. I've been tricked again.
Yeah.
It has the end's a bit janky, it's got a bit of a Hollywood kind of ending. Like he has the blood transfusion, so it's very much like this is the last time. So I don't need that level of sort of faux drama applied to it. I'm already enjoying what's happening without it having like this is the one shot we've got to win. Like, yeah, that's fine, but it doesn't need it. It's not got a great set of secondary people in it. They've got that sort of squad of bods, haven't there? There's a fat one, and there's a woman, and there's a bloke in a dressing gown, and they don't really add any value to you're supposed to like them, but they don't.
It's just like all the tropes. It just made me think of like Aliens. I was like, okay, you're just ticking the sci-fi box there.
Because like Bill Paxton's there as almost semi-parody.
Yeah,
kind of.
That is true.
He's doing loads of the audio cues, isn't he? All of his dialogue is that this is the dialogue that you need to pay attention to because it's going to come back when we do the thing in a minute. It's good sci-fi, and it has. I quite like films like that where they've got really good alien design. You've got quite a normal,
very mechanic, aren't they?
They're very there's a nice element. I like a bit of creature design when it goes into stuff. It looks very nice, but yeah, it would do because it's very expensive and it's a big summer film. It's always going to be, it's sort of cheating in a way because it can afford to be large, whereas some of these films are very, very small. I watched Arc that's on Prime possibly.
Yeah.
It's got your man in it that's I can't remember his name, but it's got Rachel Taylor is in it. She was the woman who was in. She's in Jessica Jones. She's
Oh yes, 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 yes.
blonde woman whose name completely escapes me.
Mm.
She's in it. That's very much like 90 minutes. I think there's only 6 people in the film.
Okay.
They wake up in bed. 3 people come into the room and attack them. They get reset really quickly, and it sort of implies that it's because of his death, but it's basically it's time bound. They've got like a finite amount of time before they loop, and it explains why they're looping almost immediately. It's very much like this is the science machine that's causing it. They're going to kill you, and you need to learn. And then you basically there's very little loop repetition. A lot of it's just you follow the main guy while he learns the different things that happen, and then a couple of rug pulls happen, and there's a few little twists here and there. And again, that's one of those films that does a lot of good heavy lifting with just good character work, and it's only set in like 3 rooms. There's not a lot of jazz happening, but it has some nice world building. There's
Yeah.
a lot of work at the start to kind of say it's the future. There's a war. Everything's a bit shit.
Yeah.
Go with it. And then you're
Yeah.
off.
Regardless of budget, it's obviously still able to set up that sort of world and characters.
So you better, when you've got less budget, you can't have mad special effects, so you have to compensate with better writing and better use of what you've got.
Yeah.
To try and create what you need, the story you need to tell, don't you?
That is true.
Saves you a little bit.
Yeah.
Quite enjoyed that. That's a good. It's a very good film.
Yeah.
I suppose the other thing is there's quite a lot of games, isn't there? They've got time loops kicking about.
There are games, yes.
I mean, obviously Deathloop's out at the moment, which is very heavy. You repeat the same day. That's the most on the nose of all of the time loop type things. But like people always talk about Majora's Mask, don't they? The Zelda game. That's a very
never played a Zelda game.
You've got 3 days that essentially run in real time to do all the things you've got to do, and then it resets.
Okay.
Kicking about for ages.
I have a point for you, McDuggan.
Yes.
Is Sims a time loop game? In some ways.
I suppose
Any sort of simulation game is it sort of like a time loop game?
You're learning from the thing you did, and then essentially you then as the singular person are trying to
you're speeding up time. Time works quicker.
Different things, aren't you, to try and get a desired outcome. All the things are happening as they would happen. It's just what you do. Yeah, potentially.
It's very, very. It could fit very loosely. And then Quantum Leap, which someone else mentioned earlier, which I've not played, but I've watched other people play it, and that was very the man of Medan, everywhere.
And the man, what's his face? Aidan Gillen, the geezer he's in Game of Thrones and Irish bloke. He's
Littlefinger.
Yes, Littlefinger. I really liked Quantum Break. I thought it was I know lots of people hate it, but I quite like the story, and mechanically it's quite a good game. It's one of those things, a bit like Groundhog Day. Control exists because Quantum Break was a game. It's that kind of. Sometimes an alright game has to come to parent a really good game down the line. I liked it. I suppose Life is Strange is like that, isn't it? The first one.
I've never played it, seen it, anything.
Have a day off. That's
okay,
very wholesome. And again, you don't live the same day, but you are moving time backwards to then affect it.
So it's a lot of decision making, I guess it's what it comes down to. Be the player, the characters, the viewer. It's all about decision making.
Yeah. Which again is what a lot of these films are about. That's why a lot of them have a video game element, because they are this person's trying to get through the day, either avoiding getting murdered or trying to stop a thing or make a thing happen. They have to deal with the different obstacles that are placed in their path, don't they? Which is very video game-esque.
Yeah. I guess my question to you is, what do you think is the best medium for time loop films? Like, is it film, TV, games, books as well? We don't really touch on books, but what What do you think it works best in?
Does it work well in books? Have I ever read a book that's really got it? Interestingly, the first example you gave was a book, wasn't it? Which would suggest that it must have worked.
Mm.
It must be harder to execute in that format because you don't have those visual and audio cues to.
Yeah. I mean, isn't Edge of Tomorrow's a graphic novel, I think, isn't it? I don't think anything else I mentioned is based on a book. No, I wouldn't say so. But there must be other books that are time loopy, and obviously you've got those ones that came out in 1941 and 71. Yeah. So
Hamlet's wedding.
Someone's obviously thought it worked then, but obviously technology and stuff. But yeah. So what do you think it works best in?
I think it probably works best in films, purely from the problem with episodes, like you said, is they always lead in from something and out to something else, don't they? They aren't self-contained. They're never outside of things like Twilight Zone and that sort of stuff. They will always have to have the existing set of people, whereas at least with a film can be start and stop. And there's some really good examples of the writing and how you can make it work in it, because it's easy to think it's a massively congested sort of genre, but it's not. Like like you said, there's shitloads of films and episodes, but realistically there's not too much like repetition. We watch it and think this is exactly the same as the film I've already seen. They've always got a general bit of spin, in the same way that like a lot of horror is very similar and quite a lot of rom-coms are very similar, aren't they? It's okay for films to be very similar as long as they're doing a different thing. They have a different goal and they're pointing a different direction. Yeah, I'd say probably film is cleanest because it is self-contained.
Yeah, no, I think I would agree, even though I enjoy those TV episodes, but I've only referenced TV episodes of series that I've watched. If you said to me go and watch The X-Files, bear in mind I've not watched it yet, or if you go and watch I can't remember another program you said, the one with Eliza Dushku, what's her name? Like if you go and watch that, I could probably get it, but I guess the context of why characters doing it or why it's happening to them now, I wouldn't get really. I think
lose loads of that, don't you?
Film is definitely the best medium. Just in 90 minutes, preferably you've got that whole setting, and I think certain films do that better. Like I said, I think Palm Springs, Map of Tiny Perfect Things do them quite well because they're like, here you go, here's your world. It's like, with a Spider-Man film, we don't need to know about Uncle Ben again, just throw us into that world, like Tom Holland's sort of Spider-Man, just like, okay, here's his situation, get on with it. That's what I want from a film.
You're right, you don't need I prefer that. You don't have to have the setup. You just having Groundhog Day paves the way for that. Whether it was the first or not is irrelevant. It's the one film that everyone knows, even if you don't know, you've never seen it, you know what it is. So when someone says to you, "This is Groundhog Day," that loads of that work's done for you. So that film's allowed to breathe. That I have to worry about, and that's how things. It's like Source Code and Arc. They both loop within like the first 10 minutes, but you can afford to do that because you know the rules, don't you?
That's it.
The specific rules for that film I'll get explained to you in a minute, but the base rule is it. Don't worry about it.
You should know this.
Let's just go. We don't have to. Like, whereas Groundhog Day's got a huge build-up, hasn't it? There's a whole chunk at the start of getting to the point where he wakes up.
Yeah. Do you think, this is coming into my head, do you think Back to the Future, like, is a franchise in itself, is obviously, like, well, at least 1 and 2 are this big sort of time loop? And does it work over these sort of stretch films?
Yeah, Back to the Future is, I think that's probably the best trilogy of films. If you were looking at people always talk about like Indiana Jones and Star Wars and Back to the Future, they are very well. I'm a big fan of Back to the Future, the first one especially. It's one of those films that's got no wasted dialogue. Like everything that gets said and everything that you see is serving a purpose. There's very little superfluous stuff happening. It's all driving you towards something. It's a bit of a masterpiece of that kind of thing, and it works it's one of those bootstrap loop film, isn't it? Where it's all happening, it's layered, it's all happening simultaneously. They're all in the
knock-on effects of it all. Yeah.
Again, it all works pretty tightly. There's not a huge amount of stuff missing from it. It wraps itself up quite nice. It is a perfect example of how you can do it well. It has some very good examples of these things all happen simultaneously. Let's play with what you already know and then slightly subvert it a little bit by adding in this new person or this new perspective for you to look at and see what you think. I think they're excellent films.
Yeah, I think I only mentioned that really because I think with a lot of like new time loop films or some kind of space travel films, time travel films, I guess they want you to have that base knowledge. But I think it's from films such as Groundhog Day and Back to the Future. That's where they like. If you're coming to watch this film, you should have seen these films, and therefore the basic knowledge. You can't interact with your mum, or you can't do this because it would change that. And I think those are the two films that are sort of, I guess, always are jumping off points for whatever
rule set, don't they?
Yeah, for whatever genre you choose to go down, be it horror or comedy. I think those are the two, which well, one of the franchises is good in its own right. Maybe not Groundhog Day, obviously, isn't as good, but they stand up on their own sort of 2 feet, regardless. But like I said, I think they are foundations for time loop, and then it's just sort of stemmed from there, really, as a category. What did I just see someone put in? Husband asks, is Terminator a time loop?
Yeah, so that'd be another bootstrap one, because the two things can't, like, your man, spoilers again coming up, but your man's come back in time to father the person who sends him back in time. So neither of those things happen first. So yeah, it's a causal loop, isn't it? It's I'm a big fan of that sort of thing. I love that. I love things like that. But again, sometimes you get them and they're janky as fuck. But it proves that you can't just go, oh, it's just a causal loop. It'd be easy. I've seen Back to the Future. Yeah, I'm sure you have, but a bit more to it than that. No, Terminator is a very good example.
Yeah, definitely the first one. The second one, I guess, sort of is a different kind of time travel. Makes you think of the first one a lot differently and stuff. But the first one definitely.
Is it an actual proper? This happens because of this.
Yeah, everything's
quite. We haven't really spoken about it, and it doesn't really come up in time loop films too often. But things where the person knows the thing, and them trying to avoid the thing happening is what causes the thing to happen. I quite like that. Again, hard to talk about those without spoiling stuff quite often, because that's generally the main purpose of it. But yeah, I quite like the person knows what's happening, and their efforts to stop it just make it happen.
Yeah, and again,
that What If Doctor Strange episode was a bit like that, wasn't it? The whole kind of thing was.
I avoided What If. It wasn't calling to me. I didn't watch that one.
There's a couple of good ones, and there's a couple of all right ones. And one of them's a bit like that. He's trying to stop something, and it just keeps happening. Doesn't matter what he does, it happens.
I mean, isn't Endgame technically a time loop then? In some ways, well, it's time travel. I don't know if it's time loop, but
there's a whole bit where they explain the rules, don't they?
Yeah. I think they even reference that Back to the Future, I think, don't they?
They can. But again, you're right, because the point is it's got a slightly separate rule set, and so what they do is they say it's not like that, not like the thing it's not like that. It's this. It knows that the audience already has a thing. I've got my Rosetta Stone with time travel, so I know what to expect. No, you don't. Ignore this. Listen to the ancient one. She's going to tell you how it works. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go. Okay. That just sort of is probably the most modern sort of thing that we were saying that you use those two films really, and jump off from there. And I was actually, we're going to do something a little bit different, just to make it work, so these characters can go and do this thing.
We need to, because what's happened at the end, this has to happen in the middle bit.
Yeah. Just reading through some things. People talking about Life is Strange. Husband says Life is Strange is great. I wasn't a fan of the end, but it was good.
Excellent. It's very good. And that has all of them. That has time manipulation, but it also has the repercussions. There's a few bits where you do a thing and you think you've sorted a thing, and then what's actually happened is worse than the thing that you were trying to stop. It's that sort of, does knowing actually make it better? Possibly not.
Yeah.
Cassandra. 12 Monkeys is all about Cassandra.
Oh, 12 Monkeys, of course. Yes.
That's all closed. Bootstrap, Cassandra. Nonsense.
Yeah. That's a good film. I've never seen the original, but I've seen.
Very good film.
It is. It's a good one from him. And Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis is Bruce Willis, isn't it?
Yeah, he is in it. Yeah, but Brad Pitt.
He's there.
He's doing his. He does a thing. He looks confused a lot and
Wears like a spaceman outfit thing, you know.
Yeah, he walks around and it's a bit weird, but yeah, I like that. It's a good film.
Would you class Tenet as well, if you saw that one last year? Obviously, it's Nolan again. Nolan loves to play around with time.
A non-Jonathan
His
Nolan
themes.
film.
Therefore,
Where was Jonathan Nolan when Tenet was being written? Yeah, because again, it's all happening. Yeah, it is because the bit at the end with the locked gate. That's essentially that can't. The thing that happens only happens because something that happens afterwards makes it happen.
Yeah, the 10-minute thing, that thing.
Yeah, that's a very good sequence. To be fair, I thought it was a bit shit overall. And it's not as clever as it thinks it is, but the 10-minute sequence is very clever. The problem is it feels like a film where he's thought of the 10-minute idea and then tried to build a film around it.
Yes.
And that's where it falls over because that is the clever bit.
Yeah.
And outside of that, it's all right. It just sort of plods along for quite a while. And Kenneth Branagh's in it as a Russian. He's really miscast.
Oh, I don't like Kenneth Branagh at all.
He'd already been in a film. He's in that.
It's directed Belfast, which is out at the minute, and I'm like, oh.
He's in that Jack Ryan film, the newest one that's got your man that was Captain Kirk in it.
Chris Pine.
He's a Russian baddie, and he's terrible. I don't understand why someone would have seen that and gone, "I need him to play that exact character in this film." That's what my film needs. It doesn't need that.
No. It found it really comical. As soon as he came on the screen in Tenet, I was just like, for God's sake.
Just doesn't need,
Why does he even need the accent? He doesn't. It adds nothing.
No, because that's what's distracting. If he was just being, like, as it used to happen in the old days, just a very posh British villain, that would have been fine.
Yeah.
Doesn't need to, but it's a bit like I really like Black Widow, but I found the fact that Ray Winston was in it as a Russian person very distracting.
When you know who Ray Winston is, like if you're a British person, you know Ray Winston, you're like, I can't take
Russian
him
person to do it. What is he adding? What is he bringing to it that means he is better than the fact that he's not a very good Russian? What's the trade-off there? And it's he's not adding anything, I don't think.
No.
That's just me. Maybe I'm just a miserable.
No, I agree.
But yeah, Tenet is a time travel film, and Interstellar got mentioned earlier on, didn't it? And that,
yeah.
I mean, again, it's not, but like the worst bit is the bit at the end.
I mean, Interstellar's okay, and then that last bit undoes everything that I thought was good.
And then the bit right at the end is really shit. The bit with the hospital, and then they're going like, "What the fuck is this?"
Michael Caine's there, and you're like, "What's going on?" It's potential, but again, he had the concept there, the initial idea, and then I think it just went.
And it's just too mad. There's a problem there with Christopher Nolan and Michael Caine because actually he's in Tenet for about 30 seconds, but you assume it's going to be a bigger role because it's Michael Caine, but it's not. He's in it because that's his thing. My thing is having Michael Caine in my films, but it's distracting because you assume there's more to it and then there's not. And it's like, why was Michael Caine in that? It's stupid.
Yeah. You've got this repertoire of actors. You're like, I'll just include him for 5 minutes.
Don't need it.
Don't need it. I still stand by Terminator 1 and 2 as great time loops.
Good times.
Yeah, you can't argue with the first two Terminators.
And the third one has got a very clever time travel bit in it. It's just mostly appalling.
I've not watched past 2. I've not seen anything past. Any of the new ones either, like Genesis and all these other ones
That's terrible. I mean, the one after
stemmed.
All right.
Yeah.
The Christian Bale one's all right.
The infamous one where he shouts at someone on set.
Yeah, but they're generally mostly bad.
Yeah, again, just milking it.
Again, all the ones that James Cameron is not involved in are the ones that are terrible. It's true.
So you're a big fan of Titanic then?
It's a good film. I've not seen it for ages. It's just a bit long. I ain't got time to watch Titanic these days. I could watch 2 films. I could watch 2 90-minute.
Yeah, exactly. In the same time.
6 rated IMDb films in that time.
Lauren just. Sorry. I say Lauren just asked. We haven't talked about Time Traveller's Wife. I don't know if you've seen or read that.
That is a book, isn't it? First, rather than a film. To be fair.
Yeah, I read that book.
I have
this
not
year or last year. The book's okay, but I saw the film before I read the book, so I knew what was going to happen. I think there's a whole creepy element,
It's
because
a
he's like,
creepy one, isn't it?
yeah,
It's a
because like
creepy
he's
one.
like, I've known you your whole life, and then he goes and
That's not
this
as cool as
40-year-old
you think
man.
it is.
No, you
It's
think
not what people want to hear.
people made it like a romantic thing, but I was like, I'm not too sure. But yeah, there's I wouldn't say is it time loop? I guess it is because but then again, it's like everyone's crossing paths. Like one moment he's 40, she's 8, and then like she's 16, he's 43, and then they match up and they cross, and I don't know if that's loop. I think we're getting too technical now.
And
What
that's
is?
very in that realms of like, that's not grooming, but that's kind of like you're waiting for someone to be the right age so you can have a relationship with them.
Yeah,
That's
I don't
not
know when this book was written. I think it's written by a woman as well. Actually, I think. Don't hold me to that until I've checked it. But not that that's any better. But it's just.
Generally, it's the most terrible things are written by men that are like that relationship stuff.
It's written by a woman. Yeah. Well, Audrey Niffinger.
Oh yeah, it's all different.
Yeah. So take from that what you will. Does Interstellar count? Or I guess that's not. Yeah, I think Interstellar's at its light.
Yeah,
Interstellar
no more
could put to bed. Siobhan says I haven't seen any of these films. That's fine, Siobhan. You just have to go and watch them
Morning.
once we've done. Husband likes Titanic. It's Twilight on
Titanic.
Water. I'm surprised that husband likes Titanic, but is not a fan of Black Mirror.
A lot of good things in it. It's a very well made film.
Yeah, production wise, it's very, very good.
It's excellent.
But it's what I was just watching. Like if it was on the TV, like on a Sunday afternoon, I'll watch it. It's always started half an hour ago.
Yeah.
I'm not putting it on.
Yeah.
Prime or something. I'm not doing that. No way. Siobhan just said it's been added to Netflix. Well, there you go.
Time for his wife. Yeah, get on that space.
Yeah, but yeah, I think yeah, that's everyone's sort of comments. But yeah, I think we've touched upon a lot of things. Unless you have any sort of burning desires, McDuggan, about anything that you would like to. Bit controversial point about time loop films. What do you think? Hang on, I have a question for you. Do you think there's going to be like more made in the future? Do you think this is a sort of like a genre that's going to continue to be made, or
because like you said, 2 came out last year, like very recently. With one of them had a reasonably meaty lead in it as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then that Age of the Shield episode was this year.
Okay,
so there still doesn't appear to be giving up the ghost at any point. I would have thought they'll keep on plugging out, and there probably will be diminishing returns from them, to be fair, because the problem will be what happens is Netflix has got a weird, like Palm Springs was weirdly massive because sometimes stuff on Netflix just hits this thing that makes it big, and then Map of Tiny Perfect Things was all right on Prime, that just ticked over. There'll probably be an offshoot of Palm Springs being big because it was talked about and people try and tap in on that. How can we capture this thing? And so that you probably will see some sort of slightly shit versions of that trickling out. I wouldn't see why it would. I mean, they're doing Edge Tomorrow sequel on there as well, which I'm not entirely sure about, but yeah, I'd have thought they'll keep plugging on quite happily. Maybe Boss Levels this year or last year as well. Terrible, obviously, but it's recent because people believe there's a market for it. There is. We've spent an hour and a half talking about it, I think.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think I would like to see them continue to be made, but I guess just like the quality to be better rather than trying to rush, like just because it's, the hot topic of like style to do. I would like to see those more, but then again, like we said, Palm Springs came out last year and that is great. But I would like to see them continue to be made, but maybe just with a little bit more thought and care.
Yeah.
Especially if they're films.
You should find more mini-series get made of that sort of thing using that with that Netflix model. Now that things like Dark are popular and like Squid Game's been big.
Russian Doll, you said as well.
Russian Doll already exists. You might find a few sort of 6-8 episode, which is probably quite a good length for that kind of thing to exist. You might get some of those kicking about because again they are quite marketable, aren't they? Very easy to mark. You can point at another thing, can't you? And say, it's this.
Yeah. Yeah.
With this person in it. Oh,
Yes.
brilliant.
Yeah. Got me sold. I'll watch it. Take my money. Yeah. Well, I think that about wraps up. I think hour and a half is a good amount. Sometimes I've rambled on a lot longer on these, and sometimes shorter. So I think that's a good sort of, you could delve into this topic, more and more, talk about each film specifically. But I think we wanted to just give a bit more of an overview and sort of touch upon, get people watching maybe a few more time loop films, or trying out different genres. Any of them. And people just report back to us and let us know your thoughts, be it good or bad, and if you find any more TV shows, episodes, do let me know. Always curious to try out more. But yeah, thank you very much, McDuggan, for coming on. Have you enjoyed your time?
Very nice time. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much for coming on. Excellent. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to swap back to full screen, and then I'll just sort out a raid. So give me 2 seconds.
Thank you very much. Good night, everybody.
Good night, McDuggan. Say good night, everyone.